This episode is brought to you by Goals.com, the sales performance platform built to help teams stay focused, motivated, and on track. While most CRMs just track data, Goals.com drives real results. It's simple, affordable, and designed to help your sales team hit targets faster, without the headache of complex setup or costly consultants. Whether you're using a CRM or not, Goals.com works seamlessly to elevate your performance. Book a fun, fast demo today at Goals.com.
All right, welcome back to the Goals.com podcast, the show where we uncover what drives sales performance at the highest levels. Today, we're joined by Doris Nwachukwu-Baker, outsourced VP of Sales at Sales Acceleration. Doris has led sales for global brands like Coca-Cola and PepsiCo, and now helps small and mid-sized businesses unlock explosive growth by building winning sales strategies. She's here to share how business owners can transform their sales operations into high-performing revenue machines. Doris, welcome to the Goals.com podcast.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me on your platform and giving me an opportunity to share my passion, which is sales.
The pleasure is all ours. You've led leadership roles at Coca-Cola and PepsiCo. What are some of the biggest lessons you learned in those global organizations that you now bring to small and mid-sized businesses?
Just reflected on it, Andrew, 20 plus years, right, inside global organizations has taught me lessons. Many of these lessons they are simple yet profound, right? And I have found a lot of times they're often ignored. One of the biggest lessons I've learned across all organizations is that growth only happens when systems and people, when they move in sync, never in silos. I have seen within my 20 plus years where some organizations have moved, in silo, either with solid systems or solid people, never in harmony, and it definitely leads to hazard down the line. Think about it this way. You can design the most sophisticated systems, right? Refined over years of best practices, trial and error. But if you don't have the right people in the right roles, those systems won't deliver. On the other hand, you can hire the best of the best in the industry. But if you're operating inside weak, fragmented systems, you will see the same pattern. Missed opportunities, waste spend, stalled growth, and even frustrated employees. So as you clearly mentioned, right, at Coca-Cola, Diageo, and Pepsi, for instance, I saw firsthand, right, how clarity in execution, consistency in process, and also investing in talent, how it helps organizations scale. It's because at the end of the day, it's truly about just building enough structure to create clarity and consistency, while also ensuring at the same time that people are empowered and aligned with these structures that have been created. So when systems and people work together and reinforce each other, that's when sustainable growth takes hold. And that's truly the behavior or the same principle that I move forward within the small to medium business landscape. Just tailoring it so they are practical, lean, and achievable without a massive budget. But that is a big learning for me. People and processes must move in sync to see growth.
I love that. What inspired your transition from big corporate sales leadership into fractional sales leadership with Sales Acceleration?
Great question. So a couple of years back, right, I had what I would term an epiphany moment, pretty much. So I laid out and evaluated my 3 Ps, my purpose, passion, and profession. And I started to ask myself some really tough questions. Am I maximizing my potentials? Are there barriers holding me back? If there are barriers, are they surmountable without major disruption? And most importantly, am I truly impacting my community? Those reflections caused me to pause, and I mean really pause. And that's where my pursuit to do more, to be more, and impact my community in a greater and meaningful way actually began. And just to summarize, right, God just masterfully architected my joining Sales Acceleration, leading me into fractional sales leadership, where I am doing what I've been put on this earth to do. I'm driving meaningful growth across diverse industries, verticals, and geographies. And I'm doing that both locally and internationally. And it's really a blessing. So I would say regular self-evaluation does help. We need to do more of those.
Sure. You talk a lot about empowering CEOs and business owners who don't have the time or expertise for sales strategy. What's usually the first aha moment they have once you start working with them?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the great aha moments I've seen with most senior leaders, right, is when they realize what Zig Ziglar said: stop selling and start helping, right? Most CEOs believe sales is all about, lengthy pitches or pushing more or hiring and firing. But when they realize it is something as simple as helping the right people in the right way, it clicks, right? It clicks, and that completely changes their perspective about sales. I mean, think about it this way: why invest so much in an angle or an area of business that doesn't drive value for businesses or clients you're communicating with? So, I mean, those aha moments, when it does click to them that, hey, it is something simple. I just need to represent myself, clearly communicate out there that I'm here to help. As soon as that light bulb goes off, like I said, it totally changes their perspective about sales and selling. Just that shift from selling to serving changes the gameplay for them, and it turns everything around. And that is truly fulfilling for me when the light bulb goes off.
Stop selling and start helping. I love that. What are the most
Yeah.
common gaps you uncover when assessing a company's sales infrastructure?
Another great question. One of the most common gaps I find is what I call it the duct tape syndrome. I mean, too often businesses rely on quick fixes or patchwork solution. Very similar to slapping a duct tape, right, on a leaking pipe. It might hold for a week or even a month, but it will eventually burst, right? And I see a lot of this across the four major components of sales organization. Just that short-term band-aid, replacing long-term solutions. And why? You would ask why? Why would organizations do this? It's usually because lasting fixes or long-term solutions, they often require external expertise and some real investment. And many small or medium-sized businesses struggle with going that route until they get to their wits' end. So, I mean, while this duct tape solution may be a badge of honor in the early days or in the short term, I find that it quickly becomes a bottleneck that chokes growth and scalability. So that's a big watch out. But that is definitely a most common gap that I find when assessing sales infrastructure. Those quick fixes and duct tape solutions.
Sure. When it comes to designing a sales strategy, how do you balance long-term growth with the pressure for short-term wins?
That's $1 million question. I mean, balancing long-term growth, right, with the pressure for short-term wins, I would liken it to sprinting a marathon, right? You might get a burst of speed, but you will eventually burn out. And in a lot of cases, before you get to the finish line. So on one side, you have boards or stakeholders who want immediate results. They want to see revenue growth, pipeline conversions, quick wins. On the other hand, right, you have the real sustainable growth that comes from building strong processes, training teams, and creating predictable systems. The key that I found is to design your strategy so that short-term wins actually feed long-term growth, not derail it. I mean, let's think about it like planting an orchard. Every small action, watering, pruning, and fertilizing, it doesn't bear fruit overnight. But it compounds. It does compound into a harvest that is bigger, juicier, and even more reliable year after year. And it's okay to celebrate those small wins along the way, right? Because that's what keeps the morale high, while the big engine is quietly building beneath the surface. Now, this is the reason great leaders, to help them balance long-term growth with short-term wins, they usually start with the end in mind. Think about it in terms of, say, strategic planning. No, let's say goal setting. You have your 10-year target. Out of it, you craft out your 3-year picture, and out of that comes your 1-year plan. And from there, your quarterly priorities are born. That's where every milestone becomes a stepping stone to long-term success rather than being a distraction from it. And the great news is there are so many tools out there to support in terms of sharpening this balance. So many tools are out there. And if used appropriately, they would help you align both your sprint and your marathon, just so short-term wins become a fuel for enduring growth.
How do you coach leaders who may not come from a sales background but need to build a strong sales culture in their business?
Coaching leaders without a sales background is actually one of my favorite challenges. And I see this a lot. But I always tend to keep it simple, right? The first step is sales isn't about memorizing sales scripts or being too pushy. It's about creating habits, systems, and mindsets that drive consistent growth. I like to utilize the knowledge, will, and skill framework. It's a very powerful tool to build strong sales culture. So if you're a sales leader out there with no sales background, but you need to build a formidable sales culture, I would encourage you to focus on your team's knowledge, their will, and their skill. And I'll break this down a little bit, right? As far as knowledge is concerned, you want to make sure your team understand the vision and how they're going to achieve it. Clarity is everything. In terms of knowledge, they also need to know their 6Cs, depending on the scope of their work and level within the organization. They must understand the country, the company, the categories, customers, consumers, competitors. It's a classic way to think broadly about context before narrowing it down into execution, right? They also need to master their 4Ps. And I'm still talking about knowledge now. They need to master their 4Ps, the products, price, place, and promotion to help them drive excellence. And of course, from a foundational level, they also need to know the sales process from end to end, right? Prospecting to close. The knowledge piece is very, very critical. And as leaders, we must know that what our teams know or carry along with them will continue to evolve, both as the micro and macro landscape shift. So it is critical we keep that fresh for them. So knowledge. Now we want to think about the will. How do you help drive hunger for their performance? How do you influence great behaviors and motivate action, right? You start first by setting clear expectations, communicating effectively, celebrating wins, holding people accountable without micromanaging them, removing obstacles, providing them with the appropriate tools to do their job. And also, you need to model the right behaviors. I have found that if people know where they are headed and they feel supported, they are far more willing to perform. Now, come to the last, but not the least, components of the knowledge, will, and skill, right? From a skill standpoint, this is where you want to enhance their capabilities. Talking about coaching and training. Here, we're making sure we're evaluating performance regularly to help uncover opportunities that will expand their functional as well as their leadership capabilities, both at the individual and team level. The pillar here or the goal here is just to sharpen the tool so that each team member is able to execute at a very high level. I always tell sales leaders, sales isn't rocket science, even though some days it feels like it. But when we focus on the knowledge, will, and skill of teams, it gives them the clarity to get it, the motivation to want it, and the capability to do their job. And I think that's the foundation of a very strong sales culture.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sales leadership isn't just about numbers, it's about people. How do you approach assessing coaching sales teams to unlock hidden potential?
I really love how you framed this question, Andrew, because assessments shouldn't be a gotcha moment, right? The real purpose of assessments is to create coaching opportunities that unlocks hidden potential. So my approach to assessing and coaching sales teams usually comes down to three things. I'm looking at the goals, the tools, and motivations. Goals, are they clear? Are the expectations crystal clear? Do people know the KPIs they're pursuing? Do they know metrics that matter? Do they know what time frame they're measured against? Without clarity, performance becomes nothing but guesswork. As far as tools are concerned, ensuring that we're utilizing measurable, consistent, and simple tools. I like to frame it this way. Where are you now as a team member? Where are you supposed to be? What is your shortfall? What are your wins? We need to celebrate those. What obstacles are in your way? How can I help you? That simple framework helps keep processes clear and consistent. And I think the last thing that I look at is the motivation piece. How do I create genuine motivation through assessments and coaching? So having unlocked opportunity areas during evaluations or assessments, I coach accordingly to ensure I am strengthening functional and leadership capabilities, removing roadblocks, just to allow us as an organization hold people accountable in a way that motivates and inspire them, not suffocate them. So when leaders focus on those three components, goals, tools, and motivation, I have found that assessments stop being intimidating. Rather, it becomes the key that unlocks performance people didn't even realize they had in them. So goals, tools, and motivation are the way I approach assessing and coaching teams.
Goals, tools, and motivation. That's awesome. What's your philosophy on handling underperforming reps? Develop, reassign, or replace?
I mean, you lined them up correctly, and that is my philosophy, right? Develop first, reassign if needed, and then replace as a last resort. I usually start with develop because many times I have found in my 20 plus years, underperformance isn't always about talent. Sometimes it could be about clarity, skill gaps, or motivation. And I believe if you give people the right coaching, tools, and accountability, a lot of them rise to the occasion. So if after development, that individual is still struggling, I then look to reassign. Who knows? Maybe they could be in the wrong role, right? Some people aren't closers, but they thrive in account management. Some might not be farmers, but they find themselves in farming position or hunting position, vice versa. Just finding the right seat on the bus can definitely help unlock tremendous hidden potential. Only when both develop and reassignment fails do I move to replace. Because at that point, it is not fair on the team, the culture, or the business to keep someone in a role where they can't succeed.
Right.
So for me, like I mentioned, you line them up outright. I always believe in giving people a chance to succeed, but never shying away from making that tough call when it's clear they cannot succeed.
You've led very large teams and now advise smaller teams. What leadership skills are universal no matter what the size of the team is?
I mean, whether you're leading 5 or 5,000, the fundamentals of leadership, they stay true. Clarity, communication, consistency, and care. People don't usually follow spreadsheets or titles. They follow leaders who give clear direction, who stay true to their words, and leaders who actually care about their growth. So if you care, if you get those four right, I would say the team size doesn't matter. The culture would naturally scale with you.
Sales Acceleration's model focuses on strategy, process, and execution. Which of those three do you find most businesses struggle with?
Interesting question. So, in the small to medium business space, the real challenge, I would say, isn't just one thing. Is that it is that constant tug of war between strategy, process, and execution. Let's start with strategy. Too many SMBs, that's small to medium businesses, they cling to the same playbook year after year. The market shifts, teams evolve, customer expectations change, yet the strategy stays frozen in time. I really can't tell you, Andrew, how often I hear stuff like, we've been doing things this way for over 20 years. That kind of thinking is exactly what keeps businesses stuck. Then we have the process component. Many people would argue that process is usually the weakest link because small to medium sized businesses are usually great at hustling and they often have very clear vision. But without defined, repeatable processes, execution devolves into firefighting instead of fueling growth. And that's where inconsistency creeps in. One rep does it this way, another does it differently. And guess what? Leadership is left without a scalable model. And then we have the execution piece. I mean, what do you expect? With weak strategy and inconsistent processes, it's no surprise. Execution usually ends up way below standard. You have teams out there working really hard, but the results are scattered. So the struggle, I would say, isn't choosing which pillar is the weakest link. It's really about aligning all three so they reinforce one another. That's when sales actually stops being random, but becomes this predictable, sustainable, and scalable engine for every organization.
Makes sense. With clients reporting an average 32% increase in revenue within just the first year, what's the key driver behind that type of transformation?
I mean, isn't it great to know that an
Yes.
organization can see 32% plus growth in as least little as 4 to 12 months? No matter where an organization is, stalled growth, declining revenue, or even high demand without a clear path to scale, I implement proven processes and best practices through my 20 plus years of sales and sales leadership, coupled with utilizing sales acceleration certified sales operating model. Many companies, I would tell you, already have great people and solid products or services. But what they are missing is the alignment component. And when you bring strategy, process, and execution together in a consistent, measurable way, you truly unlock performance that was already there, just untapped. So I would say the 32 plus growth within 4 to 12 months is usually just a starting point.
So, how do you ensure that changes you implement stick long term, even after your direct engagement comes to an end?
Great question. So there's this adage, right? Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. That's exactly how I approach lasting change. I don't go into organization just implementing processes and systems. I focus on building capabilities, mindsets, and habits within the team. That means I am coaching leaders to reinforce the right behaviors, creating repeatable processes, and embedding metrics that matter to keep everyone accountable. I also document best practices and provide tools that makes adoption simple and sustainable. So by the time my engagement ends, the organization isn't just following instructions. They have learned how to fish on their own, driving performance even long after I'm gone. And I'm truly grateful for that mindset and that behavior.
So, Doris, you've navigated sales in industries from beverages to healthcare to consulting. What has been the biggest constant across all these different industries?
Isn't the biggest constant me?
Good point. Good point.
Well, but seriously, the real constant I have found across industries I've worked in, from beverage, healthcare, consulting, the real constant is people. So no matter the product or service, the market or the complexity of the solution, sales always comes down to human behavior and psychographics. So I'm talking about understanding not just what people buy, but why they buy it, how they make decisions, how they perceive value, how they respond to trust and credibility. That's universal. Everything else, strategy, process, execution, and metrics, they change with the industry. But that human element, informed by psychographics, is what truly drives outcome. If you're able to understand that and align accordingly, you can succeed anywhere.
For
So
sure.
the human element is definitely the constant.
That makes a lot of sense to me. If you could give just one piece of advice to a CEO listening right now who feels stuck with stagnant sales, what would it be?
Interesting. Don't do live alone. That will be one piece of advice to any CEO listening right now that feels stuck with stagnant sales. Don't do live alone. Too often, leaders try to solve challenges in isolation. They're tweaking processes, pushing harder, hiring and firing, all in the hope for a breakthrough. But guess what? Hope isn't a strategy. The truth remains that growth happens fastest when you get an outside perspective, a coach or a trusted advisor who can spot gaps you can't see and help you implement those proven strategies. So I encourage you, lean on expertise, align strategy, process, and execution, and then bring your team along. When you stop going it alone and replace hope with a clear plan, momentum and results, they follow naturally. So again, don't do live alone.
All right, that's it for today's episode of the Goals.com podcast. A huge thank you to Doris for breaking down what it really takes to build a scalable sales engine, from strategy and process to leadership and execution. If you found value in this conversation, share it with another business leader who's ready to take sales performance to the next level. Until next time, keep learning, keep leading, and keep hitting those sales goals. Thank you very much, Doris. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Andrew, for having me. Have a great rest of the day.
This episode is brought to you by Goals.com, the sales performance platform built to help teams stay focused, motivated, and on track. While most CRMs just track data, Goals.com drives real results. It's simple, affordable, and designed to help your sales team hit targets faster, without the headache of complex setup or costly consultants. Whether you're using a CRM or not, Goals.com works seamlessly to elevate your performance. Book a fun, fast demo today at Goals.com.